these cheap driverless COB LEDs. So these are grow lights that you can find on AliExpress. They go for around £2, I think, which is really mind-boggling, considering that when you read the listing, so that this seller actually has a pretty good rating on AliExpress. I think it was like 4.9 stars out of 5, which is a good thing. But when you read the specs of this thing, there are a couple of very neat surprises. So the seller is called YXO Yuxinou. So this is the little anti-static packet it comes in. It's available in 20, 30 or 50 watt chips. And the nice thing is that these are driverless, which means all you need to do is connect it to the mains. Now, to compare that with my Citizen, so this is a Citizen CLU 048 that I bought. So this is considerably more expensive. I paid about £13 for this. It's a 100 watt light, which I'm currently running at 50 watts using this driver. So that's 1,500 milliamps. And this thing is bright as hell. But the nice thing about these is that you don't need to have a driver. So this thing has a built-in driver. It actually has a full bridge rectifier in it, so to convert the alternating current into a direct one. So all you need to do is connect the live and the neutral to it and to power it up. So it comes in 3 different wattages, 20, 30 and 50, and the difference between all of these is, I don't know if you can see it, but these little dark lines in there are the actual LED chips that are mounted on. And the only difference between these chips is the number of LEDs which are stacked on the thing. So obviously the higher wattage you go, the more cooling power you need, because these things do get quite hot. So yeah, for £2 and no driver, you could literally buy one of these, hook it up, and test it out. And if it fails, then you've only lost £2. Whereas if you go with one of the more expensive brands, and it doesn't work, then damn, you've spent a lot of money to find out exactly that. So the nice thing about these is that the actual LED chips that they use are, according to the listing, are actual BridgeLux LEDs. So if you go on their AliExpress page, you can see a video of a robotic arm placing these LED chips onto the cob. But they're actual BridgeLux chips, so they're not some random Chinese, Fong Kong type of chips. They're legitimate BridgeLux, and they are pretty good, which I'll show you later. So you get different colors. So this is, I think this is the cool white, around the 6,000 Kelvin mark. They also come in these, they call them full spectrum, but they really are just the blue and the red combination, which it turns out is exactly what the plants need. So photosynthesis in plants happens in the blue, so around the 450 nanometer mark, as well as the red, so the 660 nanometer. So these have so they have a spectral graph in their listing, and these peak at 450, which is exactly what you want. So that's, the blue is bang on. The red is just a little bit off, It's a little bit more towards the orange than it is towards the red that the plants need to photosynthesize. But nevertheless, I think this is, you know, because how they achieve this is basically phosphor coating, I believe, to create the red light. So yeah, like I said, these things get very hot, so you need to mount them onto a heatsink. So how to do this is you basically take thermal paste. So here I have a pretty decent thermal paste that I bought on AliExpress as well. So this was less than £1 for 3 grams, and I read the actual power dissipation specs of this, and it's actually pretty good, you know. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think it was around 7 watts per meter Kelvin, or something like that. It was a pretty decent. I mean, for how cheap it is, less than £1, you really can't go wrong with that. So what you do is you put a pea-sized amount onto your heatsink. So this is just an aluminium CPU heatsink, and then you go and you mount your cob on there, and you just squish it down right in the center of the pea, and you spread the thermal paste evenly. You then go on and you use the screws, and you just keep alternating the screws so that you screw it in evenly and help spread the thermal paste around to get even coverage. So here you can see some of the thermal paste extruding out, which is fine. But basically you really want this square piece to be covered by thermal paste when you press the thing down. The next step is to just wire it up. So I have one here which I've already wired up. So basically in the N, so that's the neutral, you put the brown wire from your mains, and the blue is the live wire which goes into the L. And it has really nice connectors, so you don't need to solder anything. You just push the wire in, and it has sort of like a little gripper which grips the wire, which is quite nice. And then please guys, please, for safety's sake, you really want to earth this thing as well. So I've gone and I've attached the earth wire to the heatsink. The reason why you want to do this is that if there is a short, you know, anywhere, perhaps one of the live wire touches the neutral or the heatsink or whatever, it will send current down the earth wire to ground it, or to earth it rather, and if that should trip your RCD box, so it will basically kill the power to the thing at the junction box, so that you don't start a fire wherever you're using these. So please guys, you have to earth the thing. Right, and then obviously the last step is to just add so I have here a CPU fan which I'm running at 12 volts. And this thing is, I mean, typically you want to blow onto the fan because that's supposedly the best way to dissipate heat from the heatsink, but I found that it doesn't actually the heatsink doesn't get very hot, and what I do is I suck air like this. Because the problem I found is when you're blowing hot air onto your plants, so hot, dry air, I don't think it's really good to blast them with this like hot wind. So it basically just sucks the air, and I think the plants are much happier that way. So shall we power this thing up? Should we have a look how it works? So let's put that guy over there. Let's put you guys down here. Alright. So let's power this bad boy up. So this here is the 30-watt version. Oh yeah, that thing is insanely bright. And with my heat sinking, the chip actually doesn't get very warm compared to my Citizen chip, which I'm running at 50 watts. That thing gets quite hot to the touch. This thing, you can actually touch it while it's on with this kind of heat sinking arrangement, and it's not too uncomfortable for your finger. So that's it, guys. Basically £2. I cannot believe it for such a high quality thing. So this thing is mounted onto aluminium. It has that sort of like rubberized silicone, I think it is, to make the LEDs waterproof so they don't degrade. It has its own full bridge rectifier, so you don't need a driver. And then I have no idea what that is, but maybe somebody with more electrical experience can tell me. As to the performance of them, so this thing is insanely bright. I've also tested the white version, and that's also, it's blinding. You cannot look at it. I've measured, I know it's not the correct way to measure these things, but I've measured the lux output of these with my phone light sensor, and basically just saturated the sensor, so it was at a distance of, I don't know, what is it, maybe 15 centimeters. It saturated the sensor to the point, so that's more than 38,000 lux. So I'm currently running an experiment testing these two. So the ultimate plan is to use these to grow carnivorous plants in a terrarium. And I have so this is the full spectrum one, so the blue and the red. So but I've read that for the health of the plant, you really want normal white light as well, because you end up burning the chloroplast if you use only this color. So currently I'm running a test with my Citizen CLU 048, so at 50 watts and the 30 watts, and we're testing it on lentil plants. So this plant, ever since it was about that big, it did not see the light of day. So we'll compare the plant growth of this lentil to the one grown in a sunny windowsill under natural light, and you guys can see for yourself if the LED lights are any good to grow your plants. So yeah, I can recommend this brand, this YXO Yuxinou. So far it seems to be doing the job. I've run them for about a week together with the white Citizen light, and I must say I'm pretty pleased with the results. So if you tune in for another video, I'll show you the results of running these two lights together on the lentil and comparing it against natural light. Really, £2 for this thing with Bridge Lux chips. I really can't believe that. You really should get some of these just to play around with, if nothing else. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and tune in for the results.